One sentence. The Uniform Law Commission is...
It's a national organization.
Hundreds upon hundreds of volunteer attorneys.
Smart, capable, committed.
From different political persuasions.
From diverse backgrounds and fields and geographic areas.
Who attempt to draft well-crafted and well-conceived legislation.
At the state level, as opposed to having congressional action.
On specified subjects for which uniformity of law is considered to be beneficial.
To advance the general welfare of our country, the work of the Uniform Law Commission is absolutely critical to the success of our nation.
A little more than 100 years after the Founding Fathers drafted the United States Constitution, 12 representatives from 7 states met in Saratoga Springs, New York,
to continue their work perfecting the Union and maintaining a healthy balance between the state and federal governments.
The organization they formed that day came to be known as the Uniform Law Commission.
Frederick Stimson, the commission's first secretary, wrote, "It is probably not too much to say
that this is the most important juristic work undertaken in the United States since the adoption of the federal Constitution." Wow, that's quite a statement, but there's much truth in that.
Fundamentally, it's a four-step process. We research and study whether there's a need for a law. Number 2, we do our best to bring in all the input and to draft the best law we can. Third, we bring it to the legislatures around the United States, educate them, answer their questions, and promote the enactment. And finally, we monitor, after it's been enacted, how is it working, and if it needs to be revised, then we start the process again.
Years and years ago, before I was elected to the House of Representatives in Washington, I worked in the Illinois State Senate for 14 years. Time and again, the Uniform Law Commission would produce laws that were considered by the General Assembly, both the House and the Senate. Time and again they passed, because we had confidence then, as we do now, that the work product we were given was the best.
Well, the Uniform Law Commission and its Uniform Acts affects Americans in every possible way.
In our country, we don't take organs or tissues from deceased people. It's always something that the person has willed. And that whole structure, the whole idea that this is a gift, came out of the Uniform Anatomical Gift Act. It could have very well gone the other way. It could have very well been that we would have a market in a human kidney as if it were a medical device. The reason it didn't go that way was the Uniform Law Commissioners.
Before there was the Unclaimed Property Act, there were assets that went unclaimed.
Mostly money type of property. The upshot was that there was a windfall to businesses because there was no one to whom they had to turn over or account for the property.
Basically, under the Unclaimed Property Act, the holders of the property have to turn it over to the state.
That basically stays with the state until somebody would come forward to claim it. The state has the use of that.
But in the time since the first version of the Unclaimed Property Act was enacted in our home state, which was sometime in the mid to late 60s, the transfer to the general fund has been in excess of $140 million. So if legislators have ever asked me whether I thought our state commission carries its own weight in terms of bringing in revenue to the state, I have a ready answer. It's a pretty good return.
Well, the crown jewel of the Uniform Law Commission is the Uniform Commercial Code. It has been adopted in every jurisdiction, and it controls commercial activity in the United States. It was jointly developed with the American Law Institute.
Before the enactment of the code, I think it was more costly. There was less predictability, and business does not thrive on unpredictability. And the code greatly helped in that area.
Many businesses cross state lines and cross state borders. And think how impossible it would be without uniform laws governing transportation and trade and commerce among the states. It's just inconceivable to us. We can't even imagine a nation without having those uniform laws. We expect it.
The whole banking industry is based upon the code. Checks, the transfers of billions of dollars every hour being transferred. These are all controlled by the legislation that's come out of this conference.
The Uniform Commercial Code sets the parameters of business interaction in terms of sales, contracts, effectiveness of language in commercial transactions. It is the backbone of American commerce.
Another statute which has become very important is the Collaborative Law Act. That act has been particularly critical in providing our clients another alternative beside litigation or mediation or arbitration. It's a wonderful dispute resolution solution for them. Beautiful thing about the uniform statutes is it's not one interest group that has created the product, and they take 2-3 years to develop such a product. It's a wonderful collaborative effort of many interests, and that's why the statutes are so very important and useful.
Well, over time, it's been a dirty little secret of elections that it's just hard to get materials to people serving overseas and get them back in time for an election. So we were looking for a partner who could help us work in the States in particular to try to develop a solution which would be a standard solution. Because one of the other problems we identified is that with 50 states in the District of Columbia, there are 50 different sets of rules, 51 different sets of rules that these military voters all need to try to follow. We would work with them again in a minute. They share our pragmatic, non-ideological, good government approach to solving problems. And like Pew, the Uniform Law Commission would rather get it right than get it done fast. And as it turns out, they also move pretty diligently forward.
The Uniform Law Commission is a great partner for AARP. Because of the Uniform Law Commission, older Americans have better laws on the books.
We really try to strike a balance. Should there be complete uniformity? No. If there would be complete uniformity, we can just eliminate the state boundaries and just call it one single unitary nation. But we started with the premise that this is not temporary, but these boundaries are permanent. We are a collection of states.
And what is remarkable is that after all these years as a nation with separate states, we have functioned fairly well. And I attribute a great deal of that success to the work of the Uniform Law Commission.